Hi everyone! This video will provide an overview of photosynthesis, a review of the first phase of photosynthesis, and a more in-depth look at the second phase, the light-independent reactions, also known as the Calvin cycle. So we'll start with a general review of photosynthesis. Here we've got a diagram of what happens in the entire process, and the general purpose of this process is for plants to convert sunlight energy into chemical energy in the form of sugars. The balanced equation for this process is 6 carbon dioxides plus 6 waters will yield 1 molecule of glucose and 6 oxygen molecules. This whole process occurs in the chloroplast organelle of plant cells, and it occurs in 2 phases, the first one being the light reactions, and the second one, the light-independent reactions, or Calvin cycle. So next up, we'll do a brief review of phase 1, the light reactions. So as you remember, this phase occurs in the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast. So if this is our chloroplast here, each of these little individual green things is a thylakoid, and this process is going to occur across the membrane of each one of these. So if we could zoom in on the membrane of the thylakoid, we'd see lots of different molecules embedded in that membrane. And on one side would be the stroma, the material that's outside the thylakoids. On the other side would be the inside or lumen of the thylakoid. So there are several molecules that are involved, several transmembrane molecules, and some of the most important ones for photosynthesis are these clusters of pigment molecules. You can see here these are green. These are clusters of chlorophyll molecules known as photosystems. So the first one in the chain is photosystem 2, and over here we've got another one which is photosystem 1. The naming is unfortunate. It has to do with which one was discovered first. So the first thing that has to happen in the process is for sunlight energy to come in, and when that happens, it excites electrons in photosystem 2 and energizes them and bumps them up to a higher energy level. After this electron has been energized, it moves to the next protein in the chain, which uses the energy from the electron to pump hydrogen ions into that thylakoid lumen. The electron keeps moving, goes on to photosystem 1, where once again sunlight energy excites electrons inside the pigment molecules, and the electrons get bumped up to a higher energy level and then passed on to the next molecule in the chain. And at this point, there's a molecule of NADP waiting there to pick up electrons. It's also going to grab hydrogen ions, and it's going to form NADPH. But as this happens, this photosystem 2 here lost its electron. It gave up its electron to this process. And so in order for the process to continue, the electrons need to be replenished in photosystem 2. And the way plants do this is by taking molecules of water and splitting them. So a water molecule is split into hydrogen ions and oxygen molecules, and in breaking those bonds, electrons are released. So those electrons go to photosystem 2 so that this process can keep happening again and again. The electrons keep coming in and getting energized and going through the chain. And as this continues, more and more hydrogen ions will get pumped into the lumen of the thylakoid. So after a while, there'll be a pretty high concentration of hydrogen ions inside this thylakoid lumen. So we've got a strong concentration gradient, which is a lot of potential energy, and the cell can use this. So at the end of the chain here, we have ATP synthase, and this is the only place through which hydrogen ions can flow back across the membrane, down their concentration gradient. So they will do that, they will flow on through, they will turn the turbine inside the molecule, and in doing so, ADP will be smushed together with phosphate in order to produce ATP molecules. So if we were to summarize all of that verbally, the electrons get energized by sunlight energy and travel down this electron transport chain. Water gets split to replace electrons lost by photosystem 2 and produce oxygen as a waste product. And that electron transport chain creates a hydrogen ion gradient, which is then used to make ATP. NADP picks up high energy electrons and hydrogen ions to become NADPH, and then these products here, the NADPH and the ATP, those are going to provide hydrogen ions, energized electrons, and energy for phase 2, the next phase. So to summarize everything that happened in phase 1 in the light reactions, sunlight energy, water, NADP, and ADP plus phosphate go in, and then oxygen, NADPH, and ATP come out. But if you compare this to the original equation for photosynthesis, you might notice some things are missing. Did the light reactions produce any sugars? Nope. And did the light reactions use any carbon dioxide? So you know that all that has to happen in phase 2. So phase 2 must use carbon dioxide to create sugars. Phase 2 of photosynthesis is the light-independent reactions, or the Calvin cycle, and this process occurs in the stroma of the chloroplast, so outside the thylakoids, but still within that inner membrane, so it would be this kind of pale beige area here. Now this is kind of a complicated process, so what I'm going to do in this slide is just give you a very, very simplified overview of the main things that have to happen in this phase. So you know from our last slide that this is going to involve carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide has to come in some way. So here we have a bunch of molecules of CO2. And then we also need hydrogen ions and electrons. So NADPH is going to bring those over from the light reactions. And here we can see, oh, here come those hydrogen ions. They wouldn't actually be just on their own like this, they'd be attached to NADPH. But this is a simplified way of showing it for this example. Then the atoms of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen from these molecules and these ions will get rearranged with a little bit of chemical reaction magic into a sugar. And the electrons from the light reactions, those energized electrons, are going to be used to build those new bonds between the carbons and hydrogens and oxygen here. And this takes energy, so that energy is going to be supplied by the ATP that was produced in the light reactions. So again, this is a vast oversimplification, and the product of the Calvin cycle is not actually glucose that you see here, but you get the idea that oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen ions are kind of scrambled together using energy and electrons to build new bonds to form sugars. But one of the first things we need to understand about this process is where the carbon dioxide is coming from and how it kind of gets into the process. So we'll look at that next. So hopefully you will remember that carbon dioxide gets into a plant by diffusion, coming in through those stomata, which are those small holes on the underside of leaves. Once the carbon dioxide is in, it's going to diffuse throughout the cells of the plant into the chloroplast of the plant, and then it will be available to come into the Calvin cycle. And here's a simplified version of the Calvin cycle here. And you can see carbon dioxide is coming in. But it doesn't just come in on its own and get the party started. It needs something there to pull it in and incorporate it in the correct way. And so in the stroma of the chloroplast, there is an enzyme called rubisco that grabs the carbon dioxide and pulls it in. So there it is, rubisco. And it brings it in by attaching it to this molecule here, RUBP. And this is the moment at which the carbon in that carbon dioxide shifts from being an inorganic form in the CO2 to being organic when it gets attached to a molecule in the Calvin cycle. So this is a really, really important step in the whole process, going from inorganic to organic carbon, and this is known as carbon fixation. And this is something you'll hear over and over again. It's a really important process for plants and metabolism, and for our planet. If you think about all the carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere and what we can do about it, plants are already taking it out of there, so they're doing plenty of carbon fixation. And again, if you think about all the plants on the planet, every plant that's out there, so inside every chloroplast of every plant cell of every plant, this process is happening. So you can guess that there's probably quite a bit of this rubisco stuff. And indeed, scientists believe that this is the most abundant enzyme on the planet. So let's take a closer look at the individual steps in this process. So as we just talked about, the first step is that rubisco is going to attach carbon dioxide to RUBP. And it's going to form this molecule here, 3-PGA, which is just an organic molecule. And for this class, you don't need to know the name or anything about it, besides the fact that it is an organic molecule. If we continue along the cycle here, see the next thing that happens is that ATP comes in. So that's the same ATP that was produced in the light reactions, and that's going to provide energy for the chemical reactions in the Calvin cycle. The next thing that happens is NADPH comes in, and it drops off the hydrogen ions and the energized electrons that it got from the light reactions. And once everything is there, the organic molecule, some energy to move things around and create new bonds, and some hydrogen ions and electrons, then everything can be rearranged into G3P, which is a 3-carbon sugar, and that is the actual product of the Calvin cycle. So some G3P gets produced, but other molecules will stay in the cycle, become RUBP, and be there ready for the next carbon dioxide to be grabbed in by rubisco and to continue the cycle over and over again. But the product that we want to focus on is G3P, this sugar. And you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute, I thought photosynthesis produced glucose. What's this G3P business? Well, you're right. G3P is a 3-carbon sugar, and this means that the cell can combine molecules of this to make glucose, that's 6-carbon sugar. And then once the plant has glucose, it can do all sorts of wonderful things with it, like put glucose molecules together to make starch to store, or put them together in a different way to make cellulose to build more plant tissue and have the plant actually grow. So glucose is a wonderful versatile product, and the plant will get to that a little bit later, but G3P is what actually comes out here. So if we put all of that together, both of these phases, the light reactions and the Calvin cycle, you can see how they fit together and they provide what the other cycle needs. So in the light reactions, we have sunlight coming in, water being split, ATP and NADPH being produced, water produced also as waste. And then the ATP and NADPH will come into the Calvin cycle, and with carbon dioxide coming in too, all of that will produce this G3P, this sugar product, and then the used ADP and phosphates and the NADPs that aren't carrying anything can go back to the light reactions to get recycled. And so it will just continue around this way. Now the light reactions can only happen when sunlight is available, which makes sense, and so that's why they're called the light reactions. But the Calvin cycle does not require sunlight. It can keep going as long as there's adequate carbon dioxide and a supply of ATP and NADPH. So that's why we also refer to this as the light independent reactions. So you know by now that plants are doing this process whenever they can. They're doing this photosynthesis process. But do they also perform cellular respiration? Something to ponder. You know that all cells require ATP for their basic cell functions, things like building proteins, building lipids, or moving vesicles along a microtubule using a motor protein. But all of the ATP that plants produce during the light reactions get used in the Calvin cycle for making sugars. There's none left over for other things. So where do plants get ATP for their basic cell functions? Where does that come from? And the answer is that they can transform the chemical energy in some of those sugars that they made in photosynthesis into ATP. And they'll do that using the same process that you and I do. They'll use cellular respiration. So some of the sugars could be used to make starch, some of them to make cellulose, and then some of the sugars would be used so the plant can make ATP to do everything that it needs to do. So if you look at a plant cell, you are familiar with all these organelles, and you'll see that in addition to the chloroplast for photosynthesis, plant cells also have mitochondria to perform cellular respiration. So that's everything you need to know about photosynthesis and the 2 phases that are part of it. Next time you see a plant, even though it looks like it's very still and there's not a whole lot going on, I hope you'll remember all of these complicated things that are going on inside it.